So here we are. The World Cup is upon us. Pakistan have landed in India today, and we thought, what better time than use this to get on the excitement ahead of much an event. Our first episode in this series is actually looking backwards and taking a trip down memory lane, delving into the nostalgia of the past by revisiting all the World Cups that we've been a part of. Zaid, I'm going to start revealing your age here because we're going to have to start with the first that you were around to watch and remember. Was it what, 87, I think?
Really? I thought it was 1975, the first ever World Cup, or maybe 1970 when the first ever ODI happened.
80, no,
I think I
no,
was in
okay,
the crowd for that.
no, but you told me 87 you were there, weren't you? You said you were there for the match against England. Was it Karachi?
I was there in spirit, unfortunately.
Ah,
Apparently,
okay,
Pakistan's
sorry.
best ever World Cup run, from what I understand, it was
It
synonymous.
was.
It was apparently synonymous with the 2021 T20 World Cup run, where they won all the games and lost to Australia in the semi-finals.
87 was our best team. I know everyone talks about 99, and we come on to talk
Yeah.
about that. There's a bit of nostalgia there. But I think 87 was the team that Imran Khan bet on in
Yeah.
terms of winning, right? He retired after he thought that was it.
Yeah.
If he couldn't win with that team, he couldn't win at all.
Yeah.
But look,
But in all seriousness, it was 1996. That was my first ever living World Cup memory. Obviously, I was too young for the 92 World Cup. Imran Khan's Corner Tigers in 92, which I'm sure you've not heard much about anyway.
but knowing us, we're gonna bring in all the parallels of
Yeah,
'92 in
of
every
course.
single World Cup because that's
Of
what we
course.
do.
Of course.
That's what we
Of
do.
course.
Zaid,
Yeah.
96,
Yes.
right? Talk me through it. I was only 4 years old. You probably remember it much better than I do.
Yeah, look, I think the reason why I remember it is I remember the World Cup vaguely, but I have three distinct memories of that entire World Cup. First was it was my first ever game to watch in person. I went to the National Stadium, Karachi, to watch Pakistan, South Africa. All I remember from that game was Amir Sohail got 100. Pakistan lost, and this is the 90s where Pakistan lost to South Africa in every match. I remember they lost in the 99 World Cup as well. But even before that, there was this period between 95 and 99, 2000, where Pakistan, for some reason, just lost every time we played South Africa. And then, of course, I remember snippets of that dreadful quarterfinal. I don't remember that Prasad Amr Sohail moment. I was too young or didn't really care at that time. But I remember Pakistan losing that match. I remember Javed Miada, I think, got run out at the end. I remember have that vivid memory. Was too young to get into the controversy of why Wasim Akram never played that game. I'm sure if we had Gully to
Oh,
Gully
we're not
back then,
opening that box. No,
we
no,
would have
no, no, no.
analyzed that move to the nth degree.
No, no,
But
no,
the
no, no.
but the
Yeah.
last memory that I have of that whole tournament was actually I remember Vinod Kambli like walking in the semi-final, walking off, tears in his eyes, and like wiping his tears off with his hands. Of course, after what happened in that rather infamous semi-final, I think it was in Calcutta, Eden Gardens, where they had to forfeit the game because the crowd kind of lost it. So that's what I remember of that World Cup.
So I actually remember Benazir Bhutto giving
Yes,
the
yes,
trophy
Ranatunga the
to
cup.
Rana Tunga. I remember that. I remember we were all like
Yeah,
around the TV watching it. It was a moment of real pride. And actually, I don't know whether many people know this, but the night before,
yeah.
Imran Khan had a massive party in his house in Lahore,
Oh
and he
wow.
invited Mick Jagger,
Oh really? Wow.
Rolling Stones, and
Yeah.
Mick Jagger was supposed to fly in on his private jet into Allama Iqbal International Airport in Lahore, or I think it was Lahore International Airport at that
Yeah.
time. And unfortunately, he was denied clearance to land at Lahore Airport.
Oh wow.
It's a fun fact. So I'm not sure
Wow.
whether he had a visa or he thought he was Mick Jagger and he could just
Walk up.
waltz his way into Pakistani airspace. But he was actually denied. And Imran
Oh
Khan was trying to like pull strings and get him in. But so Mick Jagger was actually supposed to be um,
wow.
an attendant of the World Cup final and the party the night before. But anyways, but
Wow.
look, I think that
Yes.
that World Cup, I mean, we were defending champions. I think the main memory that I have of that is just Junoon. right? I mean, that's when,
Of
so
course.
that's when the whole trend of, I think we always had songs for World Cups, but it was 96, that is, Just Ba Junoon in 96,
Yeah.
Dil Dil Pakistan in 99, and then Hai Koi Hum Jaisa in
Yeah.
03. These are your three big ones.
Didn't Pakistan was 99? I thought it was way before, but maybe it was adapted for
No,
99.
no,
But
no, sorry. Of course, it's way before
yeah.
Vital Signs, but it was actually made this. I think I
Yeah.
could be wrong here, but I think it was made the song for that World
Yeah.
Cup as well. I think a rendition. I think when Junaid Jamshed was solo.
Yeah. Also, so
Memories
the
bad.
other game I vividly remember is I think it was the semi-final Australia West Indies where West Indies collapsed. They did a Pakistan where they needed like 50 something runs to win and with 6, 7 wickets
Yes,
in hand,
yeah,
and they
yeah.
absolutely collapsed at the end and lost out.
But anyway, look, that was 96. But look, let's go move into one that holds a very special place in Pakistani hearts, but yet
Yeah.
also the biggest heartbreak. 99,
Yeah.
right? It was a team when suddenly, Wasim Akram decided, look, I prefer all rounders to specialists. Waqar Yunus wasn't part of the playing 11. We can argue about the politics around that, but
Yeah.
I recall that World Cup. It was in the summer months to
Yeah.
be a very festive time.
I remember Pakistan just before the World Cup, there was a tri series in India, Pakistan, India, Sri Lanka, and the Asian Test Championship before that. And Pakistan had won both quite comprehensively. We'd beaten India in India, we'd beaten Sri Lanka as part of that whole series. And we were in very good form. And of course, the way we started the 99 World Cup, I mean, red hot favorites, probably the best team on paper in that tournament. Uh,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
also they had this it was a very typical Pakistan team where this used to score 230, 240. I remember the first game, well, second or third game against Australia. Even against the West Indies, they scored 220, 230 and defended that.
But
I think
my
that was it.
favorite was that group stage game, that game against Australia, because I remember watching. It was late at night. I was actually in Lahore at the time. I think, playing Scrabble with my
Against Australia.
grandmom. Yeah,
Yeah,
uh,
Michael
yeah,
Bevan was it who nearly pulled it off.
yeah. He nearly pulled it off. Game. I
Moin
think
Khan, I think it was Moin Khan who hit like the first time I saw like that ramp sweep for six or
that.
ramp shot
Yes,
for six. Yeah,
and then Wasim Akram's last over. That I
yeah,
mean, that is. I mean, if you actually watch highlights of that video, see the issue with
yeah,
watching bowling highlights is that you only see the wickets. But if
yeah.
you see those six balls, I mean, you realize that that guy was a magician.
Absolutely.
New Zealand, yeah, the semi
Typically lost to India and lost to South Africa. Lance Klusener, I think, smashed us around. I remember even in that game, South Africa were
7 down
chasing.
for
Yeah,
yeah,
and was it Razak or Akhtar? Someone, Said Anwar. He dropped Klusener's catch, and if Klusener
yeah,
would
yeah.
have been out, and then we would have had Steve Elworthy coming on strike, and we should have wrapped the game up. but
And it's funny,
which
we
would have,
still get surprised when stuff like this happens. It's
yeah,
like a template. We 7 down, take the pedal off, and we give it to them. But
yeah,
one loss stands out, and that's the Bangladesh loss,
of
right?
course, of course,
You it. I mean, you have to watch the highlights of that game to realize how blatant Pakistan's non-attempt at winning that game was. I mean, I don't mean to go into any controversy, but really, there was a time, in those days you had run boxes. Remember run boxes
yeah,
inside? So there
yeah,
was a time where it was Inzamam and Said Anwar, I think. They ran and then turned back and obviously got run out. Now tell me, why would you? And it got caught on the run box. And why
yeah.
would you do that? I still remember. My God, that game.
Wow.
It was like a horror show.
Yeah, I
And the
remember
only
Wasim
game
Akram.
Waqar Yunus played.
I remember Wasim Akram in the post-match conference. He had like this big smile on his face. Oh, really happy for Bangladesh, and
Yeah, I was like,
maybe. But there was also the small matter of a final in that World Cup, which was going okay till Sayyid decided to change his grip, and then all sorts of conspiracy theories.
what just happened?
And I think
It's
that the
already,
biggest the biggest legacy of that World Cup is any non-cricketing fan that I meet now from Pakistan. They're like, yeah, I used to watch till 99 and after that I stopped watching.
yeah.
Literally
Everybody.
everybody.
That was it. It wasn't that. It was also the toss. I remember the night before praying that Pakistan win the toss because there was rain for the last
Yeah.
previous couple of days.
Yeah.
Great. And then Pakistan won the toss. I remember watching it live, and Wasim Akram was coming from, like, yes, now our bowlers were gonna, unleash themselves on the Australian lineup, and that was it. And then he was like, "Oh, we're gonna bat first."
But
What?
to be honest, to be fair, like in those days, it was big match, final, win toss, bat first, get 220, 230 on the board and defend. I think, and that's how that tournament was going. Okay, there was a freak performance against New Zealand where Pakistan chased down 240. But even the semi-final, the other one, the tied one, Australia defended 213 or they tied 213. So, that it was that kind of tournament. And I think in those conditions, you could have gotten a 200, 220, and in a World Cup final, that would have been enough. Clearly, the way it panned out, even 300 would not have been enough. The way Gilchrist slaughtered everybody, but
Yeah, maybe I'm being harsh, but I still remember the disappointment. My granddad turning the TV off, like, it was tough. But Wajahatullah Vasti. Let's take a moment to mention this guy, the legacy, that guy, or the non-legacy. I mean, everyone said, "Oh, he's gonna be the next big thing for Pakistan," and then suddenly he disappeared.
Wajahatullah Vasti, Abdul Razak at 3. Saklan Mushtaq's hat trick against Zimbabwe. Lots of memories from that.
Lots of memories, man. But I think, everyone talks about this World Cup as being really disorganized. 99 World Cup is a good second best when it comes to lack of disorganization. The World Cup song wasn't released until midway through the tournament after the hosts, England, were knocked out.
Yeah.
That's one thing I remember. And the second thing I remember was a brilliant piece of commentary. India-Zimbabwe. It was a game where Zimbabwe beat India, but it was really close. It was really close. And Ravi Shastri says on the commentary box, "Oh, how exciting are these India-Zimbabwe games? This is one of the greatest rivalries in cricket." And I was like, what? I was like,
that was the state of Indian cricket. That was the state of Indian cricket 24 years ago, and here we are today as hot favorites for the World Cup.
I mean, beyond favorites, to be fair. They look invincible. Anyways, that was 99. We could talk about it.
And then there were no World Cups till 2011, I think, right? They were like...
No, come on. Those are... The 2003 is still a special one. I mean, slightly. It was the last time we saw heroes. Wasim, Waqar.
On paper, probably Pakistan's strongest squad, except for Salim Ilahi, who I don't know how he was part of that middle order. But I think with Inzamam, who probably had his worst tournament ever, that was a very, very typical Pakistan flop tournament. Who can forget that Sachin Tendulkar and Sehwag partnership?
Masterclass.
That cut for 6.
Was it the cut for me? It was that Wasim Akram squared the cover drive of the back foot. That was brilliant.
Yeah. But that's where that uppercut for 6, became a thing.
Yeah.
That became a thing. And I think, what was it? Tendulkar also hit that 6 to Andy Caddick, and was in that World Cup as well, where he pulled him for 6 of a good length ball. And then I remember...
And then you had Robin Jackman, when Wasim Akram hit that shot, it was like, oh, he was literally saying this, and I was like, oh my, and I was too young at the time. Then I was like, this is almost bordering on inappropriate. But look, it was a great...
Abdul Razak dropped Tendulkar when he was in his 20s at the time, and
they were 2 down, 70 on the board.
And if he'd taken that, probably Pakistan would have at least won a World Cup game against India. But anyways, I think part of that World Cup, I also remember it was despite losing to Australia, getting Andrew Simons is 140 something, losing to England after being batting collapse
of the highest order.
But because a lot of teams didn't travel to Zimbabwe, Pakistan still somehow had some backdoor chance of making it. But of course, typical Pakistan style, could not.
But it didn't work out that time. It didn't work out that time. But that Australia game, I still remember 120 for 5. Andrew Simons' highest score of 68 was going to be dropped for the next game. And in classic Pakistan fashion, we give it to them on a silver plate.
And it was it the day before when Shane Warne got banned as well? Like his whole thing, and he had
just
to go
the day before.
Literally. So, I mean, if there was ever a chance to beat Australia, that was it. Okay, India got to the final. Surprisingly, Kenya also got to the semi-final, which is another big thing to, I guess, mention it from that tournament. But I mean, Australia were just too strong at that, and really, I mean, scoring what 350 in the final. I think that's when the Australian dominance really kicked in, and you realized, okay,
Was
no,
it
these
peak?
guys are,
Yeah. Was it
yeah.
peak?
The less the less said, the better about the World Cup.
Less.
As far as our Indian fans are concerned, the less said about the next World Cup as well, the
Yes,
better.
please. We're not talking about
um,
'07. The real.
but it's funny that the PCB Instagram or Twitter page have both been playing like Imran Nazir, the highest Pakistan score for a World Cup, which is from that specific World Cup
Which is
when
the
the
most
World Cup.
the the biggest dead rubber of all time,
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah,
that
obviously
was a
there was all
tough.
this, some sad news coming out of that World Cup as well with Ball Boomer and also it was in Inzamam's last game. Actually, my only real memory from that World Cup, apart from that horrendous game against
That
Ireland, was Inzamam walking off, tears in his eyes and really like
was tough.
weeping as he was walking off. So that was a sad way to end, I guess, a legend's career. But to be honest, format-wise, it was the reason why the World Cup is the way it is now is because of India and Pakistan in that World Cup, because they
Exactly.
actually tried to grow the game by having 16 teams, having like that football type format where you have four groups of four, which isn't a bad format to be honest, where you have two easy teams, but then as we found out,
It's not good. No, no,
Pakistan,
it's too much of a risk. It's
yeah,
too much of a risk. So even the even 2003, they abandoned Super Sixes because
yeah,
see, first they put India Pakistan in the same group because they wanted to guarantee an India Pakistan game. But because only 3 out of 6 could go through, and
yeah,
both India and Pakistan were in one group,
yeah,
there's a good chance that one of them doesn't qualify, especially when you have England, Australia. So then this abandoned the Super Six also, right?
correct.
That's just
Uh,
the way. And then they moved into the classic, what Pakistan would like, quarterfinals. So on the
yeah,
day, you can be awful initially, but on the day you could just win and make
exactly.
it through the knockouts.
Yeah. So that was part one of our trip down memory lane for the World Cup. We'll start off from the 2011 World Cup in our next episode. See you there.